Our journey commences in the late 19th century, with a man referred to in the pages of the New York Times as the Devil in the White City. H. Holmes, born Herman Webster Mudgett, is widely acknowledged as America's first recorded serial killer by prominent historians. Holmes's infamous life of crime commenced with fraud and scams. As reported by the Chicago Tribune in 1893, Holmes was arrested for insurance fraud following a fire at his residence, but he was swiftly released due to insufficient evidence. He then concocted a scandalous scheme with an associate, Ben Pitezel, to defraud an insurance company by faking Pitezel's death, a plot that caught nationwide attention. After Pitezel purchased a $10,000 life insurance policy, he and Holmes embarked on a notorious journey across Colorado, Missouri, New York, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, and Texas, where they committed other acts of fraud. These crimes were extensively chronicled in local newspapers across the states. However, Holmes's malevolence would soon escalate to something far more sinister that would shock the nation. As documented in the Chicago Post, he constructed a building ominously referred to as the Murder Castle. Here, during the Chicago World's Fair, he lured unsuspecting victims to his hotel, a murderous spree that was extensively covered by the press. The number of victims he tortured and killed remains unknown even today. It was a labyrinth of secret passageways and soundproof rooms where Holmes would torture and kill his victims. His methods of murder were chillingly innovative, including gas chambers, trapdoors, and a crematorium, where he committed his gruesome deeds. Holmes confessed to 27 murders. He later increased the total to more than 130, though some researchers have suggested that the real number exceeded 200. Holmes sold his story to the Hearst Corporation for $10,000. Fast forward to the 20th century, and we encounter Ted Bundy, a name splashed across countless headlines. Bundy's charming persona and good looks, as reported by various news outlets, belied a monstrous nature. A serial killer, rapist, and necrophiliac, who was highlighted in countless news reports as having murdered at least 20 women during the 1970s. He made the chilling confession to 36 murders during a televised court hearing, although experts cited in numerous publications believe his actual victim count might exceed 100. Bundy's reign of terror spanned several states, a fact corroborated by law enforcement reports from multiple jurisdictions. He often returned to the scenes of his crimes, a disturbing detail revealed in several news accounts. As per the testimonies reported in the news, he manipulated his victims, often luring them into his car by pretending to be injured and asking for their help. Their kindness, as tragically reported in the news, proved to be a fatal mistake. During the latter part of the 20th century, the news headlines were dominated by the horrific acts of Gary Ridgway, infamously branded as the Green River Killer. At that time, local news stations reported a body was found in or near the Green River, a scenario that happened all too often. With an unsettling record of 49 confirmed kills, Ridgway stands as the most lethal serial killer in U.S. history. Yet he professed to have taken as many as 90 lives, according to a chilling interview televised on CNN. Ridgway's victims were largely marginalized women, prostitutes and runaways, the youngest being a mere 13 years old, as reported by the Seattle Times. The haunting pattern of his murders, with bodies found in or near the river and remote wooded spots, led to his gruesome moniker of the Green River Killer. This was reiterated in countless news reports of the time. The Associated Press released a disturbing piece in 1984 highlighting Ridgway's continued murder spree. His last known murder occurred in 1998 as divulged by the Seattle Post-Intelligencer. Ridgway employed strangulation as his method of killing, a fact revealed in the shocking court documents. Even more macabre was his habit of returning to the scene to commit necrophilia, a detail that sent waves of revulsion through a CBS News report. Ridgway's heinous deeds set a grim precedent in the annals of crime, one that continues to evoke fear and fascination in equal measure. Next, we delve into the chilling story of John Wayne Gacy, known globally as the Killer Clown. Between 1972 and 1978, Gacy left the city of Chicago and the world in fear, as he sexually assaulted and murdered at least 33 young men and boys. As CBS News reported, Gacy cleverly posed as a friendly community member and children's entertainer, casting a horrifying shadow over the worldwide community of clowns. In 1978, the story turned a corner. After one of Gacy's victims, Robert Piest, vanished, police investigations, as per the Chicago Tribune reports, connected the last sighting of Piest to Gacy. ABC News reported that a search warrant led to the gruesome discovery of 29 bodies buried in or near Gacy's house. A further 4 bodies were discovered in the nearby Des Plaines River. The New York Times shed light on how Gacy's house had been emitting a foul stench for years. Gacy had brushed off concerns, convincing his house guests and his wife that the smell was the result of moisture buildup. It's a detail that continues to haunt those who knew him, as well as those who didn't but have since learned of the atrocities committed behind his closed doors. It was David Berkowitz, notoriously known as the Son of Sam, who had New York City under his reign of terror in 1976 and 1977. According to the New York Times reports from that period, Berkowitz was responsible for the brutal killing of 6 people and causing severe injuries to 7 others in a series of shootings. The city was gripped in fear, his crimes dominating the headlines as he openly taunted the police and left behind cryptic messages at his crime scenes. As reported by the Daily News, Berkowitz claimed he was driven by demons. His first reported attempt to murder was in December 1975, targeting a woman who miraculously survived multiple stab wounds. The New York Post later reported a fatal incident in July 1976, where he claimed his first victim, a woman. Over the following year, several couples fell victim to his attacks, 5 of them not surviving. The New York Times archive reveals that Berkowitz sent chilling letters to the city newspapers during this deadly spree, signing them Son of Sam. This was a reference to a demon he believed lived inside the black Labrador Retriever owned by his neighbor Sam Carr, an eerie detail covered by the New York Daily News. Next, we delve into the horrific tale of Jeffrey Dahmer, widely known as the Milwaukee Cannibal. This nefarious figure occupies a disturbing spot in American criminal history. Dahmer's reign of terror spanned from 1978 to 1991, during which he brutally ended the lives of 17 young men and boys. His macabre indulgences in necrophilia and cannibalism sent waves of dread across the globe, solidifying his notoriety as one of history's most twisted serial killers. News reports from that era capture the horror of his crimes. As CNN reported in a chilling 1991 broadcast, Dahmer has been arrested and accused of the most bizarre series of serial killings in recent history. The murder count stands at 17, all young men and boys. For over a decade, Dahmer prowled for his victims, predominantly black men. He hunted in gay bars, shopping malls, and bus stops. With promises of money or sex, he lured them to his home, drugged them with alcohol, and strangled them. CBS correspondents at the time reported victims were lured with promises, drugged, and then killed. The killer kept trophies, grisly souvenirs of his conquests. His unspeakable acts didn't stop at murder. Dahmer engaged in sexual activities with the bodies before dismembering them and discarding the remains. He was known to keep body parts as grotesque mementos of his kills. Newspapers reported that he photographed his victims at various stages during his murderous routine, allowing him to revisit each horrific act. Finally, in 1991, Dahmer was captured. The New York Times broke the story. Jeffrey Dahmer, the man suspected of grisly serial killings, was arrested yesterday and faces charges that could lead to 16 life terms. His reign of terror was finally brought to an end. As we come to the end, we arrive at Dennis Rader, infamously known as the BTK killer. Rader, who dubbed himself Bind, Torture, Kill, held the citizens of Wichita, Kansas, in a state of constant fear for over 3 decades. In an eerie sequence of events, he would bind his victims, subject them to intense torture, and then, finally, kill them. Often he left behind baffling clues and letters at the crime, sending shivers down the spine of the police and the community. News reports from the time give a chilling insight into the fear that gripped Wichita. Anchors would relay tales of his latest victims, adding to the growing fear that no one was safe. Letters filled with cryptic messages, often sent to the local news stations, were broadcast to a terrified public, keeping the BTK killer constantly in the headlines. The reign of terror that Rader imposed on Wichita finally came to an end in 2005. Ironically, his own inclination to leave behind clues led to his capture. Following his arrest, he entered a plea of guilty and later confessed to 10 heinous murders the subsequent year. Currently, Dennis Rader is serving 10 life sentences, a grim reminder of the terror he once inflicted. In summary, we've embarked on a chilling journey through the annals of American crime, starting from the late 19th century with H.H. Holmes, moving through the 20th century with the likes of Ted Bundy and Gary Ridgway, and concluding in the 21st century with Dennis Rader, John Wayne Gacy, David Berkowitz, also known as the Son of Sam, and Jeffrey Dahmer. These are just a few examples of the horrifying individuals who terrorized communities and left lasting scars on the American psyche. While their reigns of terror have ended, their names live on as cautionary tales of the darkest depths of human depravity. Through understanding these dark chapters of our history, we gain insights into the complexities of human behavior and the factors that can drive individuals to commit such heinous acts. It's a grim reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface, a stark contrast to the ideals of justice, compassion, and respect that we strive to uphold in our society. But remember, these tales also serve as a testament to the tireless efforts of law enforcement who work relentlessly to bring these perpetrators to justice, ensuring that no matter how long it takes, justice will always have the final say.